This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all the good, fabulous, wonderful, extravagant, any other adjectives, guys?
Translucent.
Stupendous.
I loved them both. News in the wide world of sports. My name is Ben.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Alex.
We are back here on Wednesday. The three Musketeers, the three amigos. We are back in action, talking a lot of great news. We're going to talk a lot about college football, obviously. We had the second to the last college football playoff rankings revealed last night, a new team within the top four, so talk about that. We have the final rankings on Sunday after the conference title games on Friday and Saturday. So on Friday we'll have to do some sort of prediction, Anthony. I know, Alex, you won't be here, so maybe we'll get briefly what your thoughts will be at the end of the segment. But we'll talk a lot about that. We're talking some baseball at the end of the show. And in the middle, we're talking some basketball. We had a goof. We had a mishap.
Someone done goofed.
But he did have his shirt on last night, so I guess that's a good positive.
Progress,
yeah.
So J.R. Smith had quite the play to not remember last night. And then we have a player who's injured, the highest played player in the league, actually injured for about 6 weeks. We'll talk about that, how it'll affect his team and the Western Conference in the basketball segment, the second show. But, guys, we got to start with college football. We have, like I said, the second to the last rankings. No shakeup within the top three. Alabama 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, Washington coming in at number 4 with Michigan losing to Ohio State. They dropped to 5. Wisconsin and Penn State are 6 and 7. They will be in the Big Ten title game this weekend. Then we have Colorado at 8, Oklahoma 9, and Oklahoma State 10. I'll kind of leave it there because I don't think anyone outside of, I'd say even the top 8 really have a shot of getting in. But, USC is 11. They do come in as the highest of the teams with 3 losses. So, Washington have 4 guys. You agree?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's. I guess this one, it's the same as the AP poll. So I was like, this is probably kind of pretty much what it's going to look like. And it is the same 1 through 7. I made a big conversation yesterday about, it's going to be interesting because you have Penn State at 7. If they go and they beat Wisconsin in the championship game, then they're looking at 6, maybe 5, depending on how things shape out. The rest of you have Clemson playing, you have Bama playing, you have Washington. All these teams are playing. There is a very small outside chance Penn State or Wisconsin or one of these teams can work their way in there, depending on if this weekend was a crazy weekend. Obviously, you have 3 of the 4 teams in the top 4 playing in their respective championship game. Ohio State just not beating that team. So there is a chance for them. It's just it's a long shot, because a lot of things have to go their way. They have to win, and not only do they have to win, they have to control what they can control, but then they have to hope for the best. So next week could be crazy.
Yeah, the only thing is, because Wisconsin, they lost to Michigan. Michigan and Ohio State, they're not playing each other. Yeah, assuming Clemson and Alabama can probably lose a game. They're still going to be in the top 4. That's probably not going to change. Assuming Clemson and Washington win, that's the only way I can possibly see maybe Penn State going up there. But then again, like I said, they lost to Michigan, and Michigan's 5, so Michigan's just ready in case one of those other 2 teams above them basically, messes up.
Yeah, Ohio State and Michigan both don't have a game this week, so
no.
they can't better or worsen their situation as it stands. I mean, technically, their situation isn't going to move. Maybe Michigan's, but Ohio State's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Do we all agree that if Washington beat Colorado on Friday in the Pac-12 title game, Colorado 8, that they're guaranteed to be in?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because there's no way that they could beat Colorado and then have Michigan, who's not even playing, catapult Washington.
Yeah, no. The only thing I think that moves Washington out of the top 4 is a loss. There's no. I don't think that. I think they can only better their situation in the sense of, say, like Clemson loses somehow.
Like even if it's a close game, if they have to go down to the wire, because we do have to remember that Michigan did defeat Colorado. Although it was early in the season, Colorado did lose their quarterback through the game when they were winning, and then obviously they lost. But the committee did say that they were debating back and forth for almost a couple of hours, Washington or Michigan. So, but I think just the difference, just like you guys said, is that Michigan's not playing. They're at home this week. They're just sitting back and relaxing.
Unless they lose, Washington is only literally going to come out with a 2 better record in terms of their win percent, and 1 less loss. So, yeah, Washington can only unless they lose, I don't see them falling out of here because they'll have 2 more wins. They'll still have 1 less loss. Michigan can't do anything to better their situation unless a team loses, and they would work their way back up, assumingly. So, I don't see Washington falling out unless they lose.
Okay, so let's say Washington lose.
Okay,
then who do you put in?
Michigan.
Well, I think it's between.
You
Michigan
think so?
and,
Even though you have Wisconsin and Penn State playing for the Big Ten title,
I think you'll have a big conversation with Penn State if they were to win. Maybe a little more so than Wisconsin, but it'll be tough. I mean, it really depends on the whole situation. It's just Washington losing at the top of those 3 teams in the top 4 playing, or did somebody else lose? Penn State, I feel like it might be the only other one besides Michigan that could work their way up in there.
Yeah, the only thing is that with Penn State, they lost to Michigan earlier in the year, and they did beat Ohio State. And then Wisconsin, you got those 2 losses, which are both to Michigan and Ohio State. So how exactly do you kind of figure all of that out when strong wins, strong losses, whatever? When they're below Michigan's 5, and like you said, they were debating what should I do. If one of those 2 teams loses, Washington or Clemson, if Clemson falls to Vatech, then basically you take all you do basically then is take 3, 4, and 5 and just move 5 up to 4. Basically move it around like that. Wisconsin, like I said, like their 2 losses, they're probably out just because they're below. Like if Wisconsin was 5 and Michigan was 6, then I would say Wisconsin might be the one to move up just because I don't think the committee wants to basically like mess with faulting a team that much. They don't want to like take a team that's below and go from 7 to 4. They'd rather go from 5 to 4 than 7 to 4, less controversy or whatever you want to call it about that.
I really don't think the committee. I think what we've seen from these rankings all year long, and especially this one, so close to the end here, I think the committee really are showing that they don't care about conference titles. Because you have Ohio State at 2 right now. They're not playing this week. They're a lock, in my eyes. They're a lock. And they're ahead of Clemson, who can win their conference.
Yeah,
they're ahead of Washington, who can win their conference.
Ohio State falls out of there.
Yeah.
And then they have Michigan at 5. So they have Michigan as the highest-ranked 2-loss team, although they will not be playing this week. So I really don't think the committee has shown that they care too much about conference championships. Do you guys agree with that or no?
I think they care about keeping keeping things where they were, kind of, basically in the sense of just like, oh, okay, this is how everything's kind of set up this way with Michigan and Ohio State. They always had them higher than Wisconsin or Penn State or whoever else in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. They always had them higher because, they were more of a national team where they, were sexy or however you want to, talk about it. But they always had them higher. And they're not going to flip that up now, basically, even though they have a Big Ten championship, whichever team obviously wins that. I think they're more about just keeping what they've had in the past going.
Yeah, and I think when they put those 2 teams in the top 4 at any point throughout the season, they know there's going to be issues because Michigan and Ohio State play one another.
Right.
Every year that's going to happen. So I feel like they knew at one point or another. Obviously both of these teams can't be playing for the the conference championship, and then just luck of the way the year went. The 2 teams that are lost to them, but also beat them. So even if they are the better team, quote unquote, because of record and all that stuff. They didn't project it that way, as opposed to Bama's always in their championship, and Clemson was likely to be in theirs. In Washington, they are the Pac-12 representative of the North Side. So, and I think it's tricky that way.
Yeah, and they made this a little bit trickier. That's not anything they did, but by Ohio State actually beating Michigan, they're the number 2 team. If it had been the other way, then you would have probably Ohio State at 5 and Michigan at 2. And then that'd be really weird because Ohio State lost to Penn State. If Penn State were to win, then you got the chaos of just like, okay, well, they won this, but they are Ohio State's higher up. You move them up now like this. It's a little bit more, okay, Michigan beat those teams. It's not as chaotic. This is kind of a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree with you that. I think it would be a little more wacky if Michigan were to have won that game.
Because then what do you do with Ohio State?
Exactly. They would have dropped to 5 and then say, yeah, Penn State wins. Okay, well, then technically they'd be the number 6 team. So would that have warranted
head-to-head day one, default them up? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Would that have warranted a 5 for them?
This way, at least, it's just like, okay, Michigan, you're 5, cool, awesome. You beat both those teams, okay, cool. If if the other team wins, it doesn't matter.
It seems like to me that it seems like they're doing more of a power rankings as opposed to head-to-head and conference titles, which I kind of do like, personally. Like, Ohio State was dominating Penn State, and then they had the fluky special teams, the punt block, the field goal block, and then they got the win. So I don't really credit much like, oh, yeah, Penn State beat Ohio State. They should be – I don't really look at that the same way. You know what I mean? So I kind of do like that they're looking more of kind of like a power rankings scheme as opposed to head-to-head and conference titles, because I don't think that you – need to have a conference champion in there. It's like, oh, Penn State or Wisconsin won the Big Ten, which has been the best conference all year long. They need to be in there. I don't really see it that way. I think you should put the best 4 teams in the playoff. And I think, for me, I'm not really high on Clemson. I realize they have an 11-1 record, so their record kind of speaks for themselves. But I'm not really so high on them as I am maybe Michigan. So I would try to disagree with that a little bit. But I think they're doing a really good job. And this has probably been the hardest year to calculate who is in the top 4. Last year was pretty simple. The year before that, it was like Ohio State and then TCU and Baylor kind of battling it out for that last spot, which Ohio State got. And it seems like they obviously deserved it because they won the title that year. But this year, it's like there's so many teams. You can make a claim for even Oklahoma State at 10. They had that fluky loss to Western Michigan where the play shouldn't have even happened. So they could really be looking at 10-1 right now in the same instance. You have Oklahoma who lost to Houston and to Ohio State, which are good losses. So you can really make a claim for as far down as the top, even 11 in my eyes, in USC. A bad September, but they're playing as good as anybody in the country right now. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they're doing a really good job having to juggle 10, 11 teams that are really capable of getting in there in my eyes.
Yeah, and you talked about, potentially talking about USC having a chance. If Colorado lost last week and USC beat Washington, then yeah.
Again, which they already did.
Then USC's Pac-12 champions. Congratulations, you're probably not getting anywhere near the title, but congratulations, you're the champion of the Pac-12.
So I mean, I think they're really doing a good job. Like for me personally, I would love to see Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and USC. Like I think right
you just
now,
want all the big names.
Not the big names. I think right now, I think those 4 teams are playing the best in college football right now.
Unfortunately, then that's not going to happen.
I know it's not going to happen. I know there's literally no shot it's going to happen. But I feel like they're playing the best right now. I'd love to see that. I think USC's playing just as good as anybody in the country right now.
I don't think Michigan's playing all that great lately. I mean, they lost their quarterback.
They should have beat Ohio State.
They should have, but you can't bet on that. You know what I mean? You got to take care of what you can take care of.
I think I'll take Michigan over Clemson.
Well, as of right now, they're not playing each other. So.
Well, I see that, but I'm just saying, like head-to-head, I would take Michigan to beat Clemson.
Maybe. I feel it really depends on their situation and quarterback. Wilton Spates did get hurt, but he got better. At the end of the day, they had to win when they had to win, and they didn't. So
absolutely, and
it's going to be
have to find out.
Whole bunch of what ifs.
We'll have to find out. Okay, so Alex, I know, obviously you're not going to be here. Anthony and I will do a little bit of a preview on Friday, but final predictions for the Final Four.
I think it stays this way.
You think everybody wins?
Yeah.
You think Clemson wins? You think Washington wins?
Yes, I do.
I agree. I think Colorado gives Washington a test, but I think the Huskies will pull it out late. But we'll break it down on Friday. So, and I think regardless, Alabama loses, they're still in, right?
Yeah.
They're still number 1.
There's no way Florida will beat them.
Number 1,
if they lose, they're still number 1.
Yeah.
There's no way they're moving.
Because even if you lose, you lost
they might.
to a ranked
I think
team.
they'd move down.
No.
I think they would move down.
Who's going to jump them? Ohio State?
Maybe.
They're still going to have 12 wins.
Or maybe if Clemson absolutely pounds Virginia Tech or I wouldn't say Washington. But
no, they're not moving that over an SEC team.
Yeah, Bama's not moving.
What if they lose bad, like 30 to 6?
Now you're just talking of impossibilities.
Anything's possible, man. We saw 2, 3, and 4 lose for the first time in over 30 years.
But which one of those teams didn't lose? Alabama.
Right. That's
I know that, but I'm just saying.
They're not losing.
I don't think they will either. But we've said that before.
Not with Alabama. If I said Alabama's not losing, I was clearly correct.
This year, you've been correct, yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about this.
This has been the one year. Okay, I'll give Alabama some credit here. This has been the one year that Alabama have not that one little slip up. The last couple of years, Ole Miss, You know what I mean? So they've actually ran the table this year, so I'll give them some credit
Their
for
only
that.
slip-up was their 10-0 beating of LSU only because it was by 10, and they didn't score a point, until the fourth quarter. That was their only quote-unquote slip-up. Otherwise, they've been pretty solid. So if they lose, they're not moving. I mean, Clemson's playing a good team also. It's not foregone that they're going to win.
I mean, over Virginia Tech, who are just barely creeping into the rankings at 23 this week after being not ranked.
I think they will win. I'm just saying it's not as much of a certainty in my eyes as Alabama winning. So I think it would take a lot for some team to move Bama out of number one, even if Bama lost.
And then I think there's one team we need to remember that could possibly jump into these rankings, and it's a little bit down. Number 17, Western Michigan, do play Ohio on Friday.
Yeah, if they win, I think they go all.
I mean, they will be 13-0.
Excuse me, you're right.
In the MAC championship game.
If Bama loses, I think Western Michigan jumps into the 1, and Bama falls to the 17.
I mean, they have a pretty good resume. They do have a top 10 win. So
yeah, and
Oklahoma State,
they're the only other undefeated team in the nation. Yeah, they'll be in the top 4. No doubt.
I mean, when you look at their resume with Washington's, it's pretty similar. I could see how the committee will be debating Western Michigan for a while.
The strength of schedule is the same.
I mean, that one's probably true, but yeah. So Western Michigan at 17, the other lone undefeated with Bama, as you mentioned.
They moved up 4 spots.
They did. Hey, maybe with a win, a lot of teams not playing this week. Maybe they could jump up to like
the mid-teens.
Maybe let's say 15, 14.
They could drop, They could drop, or jump to
because Florida will lose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's
West Virginia play Baylor, who are struggling but still capable. We saw Baylor within the top 10 earlier this year. So
yeah, but they're having a horrible go of things lately.
They are, but I mean,
there's 2 spots right there. Boom, could open up in a heartbeat.
They could be looking at 14 right in the eyes.
They could be looking at 13 if they wanted it. If they want it, go take it. So say, you know what, we're going to take 13 this year. We'll
and then obviously they have their bowl games, so they could be going 14-0.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, mm-hmm. Then we could have 2 teams at 14-0 this year,
or even 1 if Bama lose.
I'm not saying I want them to lose. I don't like Alabama. I'm just saying the foregone conclusion is Alabama's going to win the national championship because that's what the foregone conclusion is when the season starts every year. Oh,
interesting, but we will see. So, as we mentioned, the final college football rankings will be revealed on Sunday. We will have our semifinal matchup set, so we'll sort of talk about that on Monday. The only 2 teams within the top 10 not playing are Ohio State and Michigan, so there is still some important games. You basically have a Big 12 title game, although it wasn't set up that way, between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. The winner of that will be winning the conference, so we'll have to wait and see what happens.
And possibly moving into the top 8 because... Actually, yeah.
I think the only way one of those 2 teams has a chance of winning is if Clemson lose, if Washington lose.
Oh, they're not getting in.
And if Wisconsin and Penn State is just a ugly, boring game.
They're not getting in. I just think because Colorado or Washington has to lose. I think Colorado, so that's the number 8 team right there, and then one of the 6 or 7s has to lose, so they would drop. So the winner of that could be looking at like 8 or 7 in the countdown next week.
They would need like literally a miracle.
Oh, I'm not saying that in literally any case of making the playoffs. I just mean, hey, one of these teams is going to move up for a conference that's not even supposed to have a quote unquote championship game. They have a 9 playing a 10. So, in your face, NCAA, in your face.
Interesting, but we will preview some of those on Friday. So let's take our first break, guys, at the Sports Podcast. After the break, gonna be talking some basketball, some J.R. Smith, some blunder news. Too busy jawing away with Jason Terry. And we'll also talk about Mike Conley, little injury. So we'll be right back, guys, at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. And one bit of news to mention that we can tell you, a little smaller thing, in the grand scheme of things. Oregon has fired their coach, Mark Helfrich. He is gone after what is probably the biggest down year in Oregon's time in the last decade or so, I would say. After averaging 11 wins over the previous 8 seasons, a 9-4 season felt bad. Not only that, now they're 4-8 this year. And yeah, I think it was writing on the walls. They were regressing every year almost with him. It seemed. I think there was a lot of shielded skill there because of Marcus Mariota's last few years there. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they made this move at all. I feel like at times that they are more worried about what jersey they're wearing that week than winning games this year. It seemed like at times. So yes, Mark Helfrich is gone. Who knows? Maybe they'll go get Chip Kelly again.
I mean, they were 12-14 since they were in, or I should say Helfrich was 12-14 since he was in the title game 2 years ago, which was with Chip Kelly's team. Mm-hmm. So really, since he took over, since Kelly bolted to the NFL, he hasn't been able to bring in recruiting like Chip Kelly did, score as many points. I mean, I'm not really surprised. They're not going to bring back Chip Kelly. He's not going to. If he's going to leave the NFL, he's not leaving it to go back to Oregon. He would have gone to like Texas or LSU or some like Notre Dame, an elite coaching job.
That and not even mention last year they were in the Alamo Bowl. They had a 31-0 halftime lead and they ended up losing that game.
Yeah, to TCU. I remember that.
Yeah. So
that was an interesting game.
I feel like that was one of the biggest things to kind of start this. You can't lose like that, especially with no team should lose after having a 31-0 halftime lead. That's just like you have to beat yourself. You know what I mean? In that sense, you have to let them completely come back in, and at the same time, you need to give them every opportunity that they can find to get back in that game. And he did so, and the team did so. So that is not a good. That was not a good sign from the get-go. He won with not his team. You're right about that. So
he actually lost more games this year than Chip Kelly did the whole time he was at Oregon.
Yeah, because Chip Kelly's a good coach.
Yeah,
maybe not right now, but.
He's a good college coach.
Yeah,
an NFL coach.
Well, he did fine in Philly when he was in Philly for the beginning, and then he just got rid of everybody.
Chip Kelly, not a good GM. We'll say that because he tried to be that.
You can't do college in the NBA.
He tried to do that Belichick role where he became the GM of the team while he's coaching it, and he traded LaShawn McCoy for all these Oregon guys, and just didn't really pan out. So.
Yeah, Belichick's been in the league since the 80s with, like, Bill Parcells and coaching like Lawrence Taylor, so he had a lot more of a history of knowing what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, you see those. It's different when those guys have been in the league for a long time, as opposed to being in college for a long time and knowing football, but at the same time, football in college when you're with kids next to guys that range from 23 to 40 is a little different, so... Not surprised, unfortunately for him. He'll get another job. He was a good.
I think he'll get a coordinator job.
He was a really good coordinator.
I
like the way he did it.
So. He'll get a coordinator job. I'm not really sold on him being a head coach. Like I said, just couldn't bring in the recruits.
Mm-hmm. At least at a program that was as successful and as big at the time, I suppose, as Oregon was when Chip Kelly left. They were really one of the teams you expected to be in the top 10 every year in the preseason rankings. They definitely have taken a fall. To say the least, Ben.
Definitely.
Anthony, to say the least. Okay, let's move to basketball. Ben, I know you have some stories for us in that regard.
Yes, definitely. We have Mike Conley. He got injured on Monday against Charlotte. He hurt his back. He is reported out to be 6 weeks on the sideline. This is what the Grizzlies reported yesterday. Of course, he signed a 5-year, $153 million deal in July.
It's a pretty penny.
That crazy free agency period, Alex, we talked about in the show so much,
yeah.
But he is the highest paid player in the NBA. He's out for 6 weeks now. He's been doing pretty well for them. He's averaging about 19 points, almost 6 assists. And the Grizzlies have an 11-7 record, which has them in 5th in the conference. But now you lose your best player and the guy that's literally eating up your salary for 6 weeks. There's not for the Grizzlies team that was. I think they were kind of overperforming anyway at 11-7. But now you don't have Conley. I mean,
what I think too is important to look at is I feel like it's a tentative 6 weeks because let me make it sound smart real quick. He has a transverse fracture, in the vertebrae in his lower back. So in regular kind of regular language, he broke his back.
Yeah.
So he has, broken back in his lower vertebrae of his back. So you're looking, about middle down. That doesn't, it's 6 to 8 weeks, and that's as long as it heals well. When you have a broken back and you're playing a game where you're running and stopping and jumping and shifting, you can't guarantee he's going to be back in 6 weeks, let alone, the full 8 weeks. That's like saying somebody with a concussion in football has a very easy, timetable. It's not always the same, especially with any injury in a contact sport or basketball alone, But I think a back is tricky because of the fact that the way that, basketball is, you're up and down, you're quick, you're tense, you're all these things. He has to really be fully healthy to come back. So it's 6 to 8 weeks, and I feel like that's optimistic fully, depending on the severity of it, of course. I don't know if it's just a crack or a full break of something, or something like that. So.
Yeah, and he's not having surgery on it like with Dwight Howard. Howard took him literally like a year to come back and be fully Dwight Howard once he got his back, broken and had to have surgery on it. Yeah. Him, he's 6 to 8 weeks, and it's kind of those things they do with. When you have a broken foot, when Durant had his stuff with the foot, they kind of say 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, cool. Let's maybe hold him out 10. That way, when he comes back, he doesn't re-injured, and then he's got to be out longer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of one of those things.
And I feel like it's all dependent on the person also at times too, because you look at guys like Ben Roethlisberger who has injuries they're supposed to take 6 weeks, and he's out for 2 weeks. And it also depends on the severity of this case too. Again, we don't know how bad he actually broke it in that sense. So it could be just a stress fracture, and it's 6 to 8 weeks because that's more than enough time he would need. I'm sure as the time goes on, in a couple of weeks we'll have more of a significant timetable, something more realistic. But what's worse is you talked about the start the Grizzlies had, how well they were playing, and not only are they out Mike Conley now, they are also now missing Chandler Parsons with a knee injury. Zach Randolph is on personal leave right now. I think there was a death in his family or something.
Yeah, his mother died on Thanksgiving of all days.
That's horrible. Brandon Wright and James Ennis too. Also, excuse me. So all those guys, all some of your significant contributors are all out knee injuries. Personally, like I mentioned, Ennis's calf and then Brandon Wright's ankle are all keeping him out. So they're getting hit with the injury bug early in this year for sure right now.
I feel like it's kind of – you mentioned Roethlisberger, and I feel like it's kind of different depending on sports. And I'm not going to accuse anybody of being like a baby or anything.
No, yeah, I purely mean people's different ways of healing. And
here's what I'm going to say. You have the NBA. Mm-hmm. Your contract is guaranteed.
Yeah.
I'm not playing until I'm literally absolutely 100% healthy.
But why? It's guaranteed.
Because my money's guaranteed no matter what.
Exactly.
So why would I not rest until I'm fully ready to play? With Roethlisberger, he knows there's only 16 games.
That's the thing.
The more I miss, like he's missing a 16th of the season. Mm-hmm. Mike Conley's missing 6 weeks. That's a lot of time. But if he's missing 2 or 3 games, that's not even comparable to 2 or 3 games in the NFL.
Is people's ability to heal, not necessarily their desire or
right.
want to play.
And like with Roethlisberger, all he basically has to do, not all he has to do, it sounds like it's, easiest thing to do. You break your back, see how you feel, but, take a bunch of pain meds, play for 60 minutes.
That's not the thing to do anymore.
I mean,
but it's a little different. In the NBA, you have back-to-backs. You have 4 out of 5.
I'm not comparing them in terms of injuries in leagues. I'm comparing them as people who heal differently.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, like, with the NBA, I feel like with the NBA and really baseball too, because baseball's contracts are guaranteed. I feel like you kind of see people not pushing it as much as you do in other sports.
Well, baseball's such an exact science to like swinging a baseball bat, not having like your back all messed up when you do that. Basketball, you can kind of, not have perfect form, drive to the basket, get fouled. Like you can still contribute in other ways. With baseball, like you got to hit this,
Right, but I'm not saying a back injury in particular, but just an injury in general. Like I feel like they take a little bit more time in basketball and in baseball. I think it has to do with the contracts. Like, hey, I'm going to get paid to sit on the sidelines or to be out there. I'm going to wait until I'm fully healthy. Or we have a long road trip upcoming. I'm going to like take a couple of nights off. I'm going to wait until we come home. Like last night, the Clippers sat Blake Griffin against the Nets. And what happened? They actually lost. We saw what Doc Rivers, that guy threw the biggest temper tantrum I've ever seen in sports. But, so it's like these guys are kind of like not pushing it to the limit, where in other sports I feel like they kind of do. And I, like you said, Alex, there's people that heal differently. There's like different mindsets in it. So I understand a lot of different things. But like back to the general base of the story, like the Grizzlies are in trouble. Chandler Parsons signed a $94 million deal this offseason as well. So they're 2 highest paid players are out right now with injuries. You have Zach Randolph dealing with some personal issues. So, I mean, the West is kind of competitive as it is already. Like, you've seen a lot of teams improve. Like, the biggest surprise to me this year has been the Lakers. Like, Luke Walton has had an immediate effect on that team.
Yeah, and now they're dealing with injuries too.
Yeah, like you have Swaggy P, Nick Young, who leaves with an Achilles injury, so he might be out a little
Russell's
bit.
still a little iffy in his injuries. Yeah, I mean, and it's weird too that not weird, but it's a competitive enough, like you said, and they're in a tough position because losing all these people. It's competitive enough when they have the record they did to start the year, and they're in 5th.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, there's some issues here. I mean, when Conley wasn't injured, he was playing great. He had the best start of his career off of this huge deal. He's averaging just shy of 20 points a game, just under 6 assists a game. That they're going to be in a spot to really. I think they're going to be needing some wins soon.
Definitely. And we'll end the segment real quick. J.R. Smith, guys. I know you both saw the play last night, and it's a little harder when you're trying to talk about it as opposed to looking at the visual. But they played the Bucks last night, a game where the Bucks actually beat the Caps pretty handily. So J.R. Smith, I think this is really the peak of J.R. Smith. We've seen a lot of different antics from him within the past. He's been probably one of the funniest guys in the NBA, or at least one of the best to make fun of, I'll say, because he does some bonehead, stupid decisions. Yeah. But last night might be the peak of it. So the Buccaneers, I'm sorry, not the Buccaneers, the Bucks. The Bucks are inbounding like on a sideline play. So J.R. Smith is kind of like, jawing back and forth before the play starts, coming out of the timeout, out of the huddle, whatever. He decides to talk to Jason Terry, obviously a guy, an NBA veteran, been in the league probably more than the majority of the people in the league now. So he's just kind of jawing back and forth with Terry on the sidelines. He decides to leave his man to go off of the court to talk to Jason Terry.
For a quick 3 seconds.
Little did he know the play is getting started to obviously inbound the ball, and Milwaukee has a wide open layup. Like, is this the highlight of J.R. Smith's
I mean, he's done a lot of weird stuff, but he's never done it in a game before.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's in a game because there's stories about him. How can I put this delicately?
His Twitter messaging.
His Twitter messages. Someone about certain plumbing. Yeah, so I mean, there's things that have happened in the past with JR. I love JR. He's the best. He doesn't care. And they interviewed
his shirt or not.
Right.
I have no reason to like him.
I think he's hilarious.
I love him so much. He's the best. He's so and now we love him, right? Which is great because it's one thing of us you win a title. Cool, you're good. It's the Gronkowski syndrome. It's the who else got that kind of Allen Iverson when he went to the finals. All of a sudden, he was a leader. It's kind of one of those things of just oh, okay, you actually went really far. Cool. We like you now. And he, after the game, they're what the hell happened? Why did you basically just decide? Nope, never mind. He basically was just what? I don't know. Was I playing? I don't remember.
I don't need that kind of weird. I don't need that weirdness.
I kind of put J.R. Smith and Nick Young in the same
I don't like
category.
Nick Young either. You can't give yourself a nickname. Especially that nickname.
God gave him a nickname in his dream, you remember now.
No, but that's just a way to explain
I'm not saying
himself.
I'm not saying I like them, but I feel like they're the same person. And here's why. Two reasons. Number one, on the court, they either put up 30 points or they put up 3 because they're either hitting all of their shots or none of them. So they're the same person on the court. And off the court, they're the same person as well. Just doing weird, totally out there things that make you kind of laugh and giggle. You know what I mean? With Nick Young, like I said, Swaggy P, a dream that God gave him the nickname Swaggy P, and then the whole thing with D'Angelo Russell last year with the Iggy Azalea Snapchat controversy. And
I don't need that kind of weird. I'll take...
And then stealing the ball from Lou Williams last week to hit the game-winning 3.
I'll take blowing in people's ears over being weird on the court
Lance Stevenson.
I'll take Stevenson over that, yeah. I mean, not the skill, but I don't want some guy on my team that does that and then goes, I wasn't even paying attention. I don't remember that. I don't know if you're being.
And did you see what he was wearing
funny?
after the game?
Yeah, and he said it was my alter ego, and they're like, does he have a name? And he goes,
it's just funny.
He goes, yeah, and he said, what is it? And he goes, I can't tell you.
What? If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
By the way,
one of those.
I just don't. I don't need that weird, man. Put a shirt on. Stop being weird. Stop doing that.
I would just like to point something out really quick. I love J.R. Smith. He's my boy. He's great. Last game, whatever, 2 for 7 from the field. That'll happen sometimes,
especially with J.R. Smith.
Game before that. Or listen, 2 games before that. 1 of 11 from the field, 1 of 10 from 3.
Uh-huh.
The game on the 27th on Sunday, 0 for 11, 0 from 7 from 3.
Yeah, he's been playing pretty
He
bad
has
lately.
been putting up a lot of shots, very few of which are going in.
Yeah, like I said, he'll either put up like 30 where he hits 8 of 10 from 3, or
Yes.
he'll put up 5 points where he hits 1 of 10. You know what I mean?
I have different reasons why I don't like him too. I don't like Nick Young though. I don't like him because he's weird. J.R.
Nick Young is weird too, though.
Nick Young's weird, but he's cocky in the sense of like he put that 3-pointer up, turned around, did the whole 3-pointer make thing, and it missed.
And like the ice in my veins and everything.
That was
and
Russell,
he missed. Yeah.
No, but he copied him too after
that's
he
right.
hit the shot
You know,
last week.
like stuff like that. Like, I mean, just play basketball, man.
But the other thing
So that's why I don't like him. I don't like J.R. Smith because dude's weird.
Okay. Well, you talked about J.R. Smith's shirt.
What shirt?
How he doesn't have one.
If he didn't
How
have
he
tattoos
never
on his
wear
chest,
one.
he would have got one
But you
tattoo.
do you know that you can buy a shirt
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It looks like his
of
chest.
J.R. Smith's chest. So
Yes.
what if he wore a shirt
Of his
of him
chest.
not having on a shirt? Then would you be happy?
Yeah. Because that's the thing I would do. Yeah. Because that's funny.
It's literally okay, but this is the same thing. Like he's totally just like, oh, like what's up, Jason? Like, oh, what'd you say? Like, what was that?
How do you not know
Oh,
you're
wait,
in the
hold
game?
on, they gave up a basket.
There's no
Like,
reason you can walk on the court and walk over to the other sideline at any other point unless you're in the game. Because otherwise you're sitting on the bench.
It's just funny.
Where he should have been the last few games anyway.
If
'cause he's
anything,
been bad.
I give credit to Jason Terry, like a veteran move there. Like, hey, Jr.
Yo, what's up, man? You
I
want to
see
get
you
lunch
got
after
I
this?
see you got a shirt on tonight. Like, oh wait, what was that? Oh, yeah, joke's on you.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly. Like, how's your family? My wife says hi. You know, want to get dinner? And then hug it out. And then, yeah, he distracted him. I give Jason Terry all the credit in the
so,
world.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty funny. But
Jason Terry's clever, man. I like
the
Jason
Jet.
Terry.
I
Jason
mean, he's
the
been
Jet
around for a
Terry.
while, so he probably has these veteran.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing since 1906.
that veteran
so
IQ.
He's built it up, and he deserves it.
I
That guy's a clever fella.
That is true, man.
I'm a
That's
Jason
true.
Terry fan. I like that guy. He's not my favorite, though. You know, my
Oh, you're
favorite
a
basketball
Jason
player
Terry
is-
fan.
My favorite basketball player is Dirk.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Is the Dirk? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a legend, man.
I know.
I can't disagree with you there.
Believe me, I know. And being
He
German,
literally created an
and him being
unguardable
German.
shot.
I know. And then Porzingis used it, and Dirk's like, okay, that's pretty good.
Well,
He's
I
gonna
mean,
move on me.
if anything, you could say Porzingis is like the young Dirk. Almost.
Well, I'm saying Porzingis used it on Dirk. You know, he didn't just do it to anybody. He did it to the guy that created it. That's like Michael Jordan dunking in the face of Michael Jordan, or getting the putback glass Tim Duncan shot on Tim Duncan in his face.
Dwayne Wade's been using that for a while now, but
But nobody did it like Tim Duncan.
of course not. Of
Dwayne
course
Wade
not.
did it athletically. Tim Duncan one-handed it up there like Wilt Chamberlain. Different.
Yeah. So
So yeah, Dirk, he's the bestest.
okay. I mean,
And then I like
can't
Jason Kidd
disagree.
before he had gone to the Lakers. I'm not a Laker fan, so Jason Kidd went there. I was like, who? Or not Jason Kidd, I'm sorry, Steve Nash.
Okay, I was going to say.
I don't want to say
Jason
Jason
Kidd didn't go
Kidd.
to the-
Steve Nash. Liked Steve Nash a lot. When he was with the Suns, that's my boy. He went to the Lakers. Who? I'm sorry, who?
To be fair, he didn't play much when he was on the Lakers.
Hey,
He got
that's that
injured a lot.
first like month and a half he did.
Sure.
First month and a half, I think.
I mean,
And I think since then, Ben and I have played.
they might still
as
be
he did.
paying that guy. I mean, they paid him so much money to sit on the sidelines, but.
Yeah, they did. And
The Lakers now, I mean, I got to give them Lakers credit. They're doing pretty good rebuilding their squad. I think they have a good young coach. And Walton, I think sort of his younger age and mindset can sort of adapt well to these players because
Some
the
of them are
Lakers
so
are
young.
such a young team. I
Yeah.
mean, look at their top players. You're looking at Jordan Clarkson, D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle. They've all been in the league like 3 years. They're just babies. So.
Yeah, I think it's you know what you mean is it's. I think it's better that he's not young, but I think he's better.
He's younger.
Yeah, I think it's better in the sense of like a guy his age as opposed to like a guy Popovich's age.
Right,
You know,
right.
he can relate to them a lot better.
Exactly.
You know, he's still young enough to run, you know, on the court and play defense on them at practice. You know, so and he would give Luke Walton credit. He was a pretty good defender back in his day. All right, well, let's take our last break, and we'll come back and we're going to talk some MLB stuff, some players that are doing things regarding money. Pretty big deal, if you ask me. In just a minute, we'll talk about it here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hey, we're back here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast, and it's time to talk baseball. One big thing that came out of baseball yesterday, earlier in the offseason, Yoenis Cespedes opted out of his deal to become a free agent, and apparently he did so to get a bigger deal from the Mets, whom reached an agreement with him yesterday for a 4-year, $110 million deal. Cespedes will receive a full no-trade clause and will make $22.5 million next year, $29 million in 2018, 19, and $29.5 million in 2020. Pretty big. It's the top average annual value ever for an outfielder and ties the top AAV ever for a free agent position player. Second behind only Miguel Cabrera. Yeah, that's a pretty big payday for a guy that was almost single-handedly responsible for keeping them in the race when their pitching wasn't doing much.
He's going to be getting less money than he did last year, which is about $27.5. But obviously, over the next few years, he's going to be getting more, a longer-term deal. He hit .280 last year, 31 home runs and 86 RBIs. He also was injured last year, so these stats could have been a lot higher. Plays in New York at Citi Field, which is more of a pitcher's ballpark than hitter's ballpark.
Oh,
so, I mean, like you said, it was just a matter of wanting a longer-term deal and getting more money. The Mets obviously need him. Since they made that trade for him, he's helped them and he's helped the Mets. They have a 106-74 record in that year and a half, 2 years that he's been there. So I guess it makes sense. And without any sort of big name outfielders, except for maybe Jose Bautista, who's kind of old out there left, it makes a lot of sense why they brought back Cespedes.
Yeah, including last season, as well as his $100,000 bonus for his performance last season. His total deal with the Mets weighs in at $136.6 million over 5 seasons. That's a pretty big chunk to a player that, I mean, some would say is worth it in regards to sports contracts. I don't think I have a problem saying, guys playing sports are worth millions and millions of dollars just in regards of, they are playing sports, but in the sense of the sport itself and the worth of these players, he certainly seemed to be worth it.
Yeah, it's valuable compared to what you are. LeBron James, you can say, is underpaid. You can say all those things. But, yeah, so is Cespedes. He's the, most, offensively talented dude. They tried to bring in Jay Bruce last year to try and, basically balance it out, and he didn't do what they'd hoped he would do last year. He only hit .219 for him and had, 8 home runs in that time. So he didn't do what, Cespedes did last year for him, basically, was that spark for offense, got him all the way to the World Series. And, you still got that pitching, which I guess got a little bit depleted because you don't know basically how someone will come back. You got Harvey, who he's been injured. Bartolo Colon went to the Braves. You still got DeGrom and Syndergaard, so you got those two at least, but you don't know exactly how the pitching staff's going to be coming back next year. So at least you have this guy on offense. Worst case scenario, he's going to get about 25 to 30 home runs, maybe not 100 RBIs because that kind of depends on the teammates around him. And like you said, it's only for a short amount of time relatively, so it's not like they're going to have the contract when he's 41, the kind of Albert Pujols situation.
The A-Rod deal.
The A-Rod deal, the Carlos Stanton, yeah. So,
the Mike Stanton.
It's at least, manageable as far as that goes, because if he's only good for, let's call it 2.5 of those years, they'll just eat the last year and say that's fine.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't know if you mentioned this, Ben, but you look at, since his debut with the Mets, they've gone 106-74, right, and then their total without him. But I don't know if you mentioned their run average also with him in the game. They're averaging almost a full run more than they are without him in the lineup. So he's obviously been responsible for a lot of their success in the last 2 years, roughly. He was selected to his second All-Star appearance this year. He didn't play, though, because of his injury. But, I think very much deserving of it after the year he had this year.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, Anthony, the pitching staff they have. Last year, the problem with the Mets was they were just injured all around the board. Mm-hmm. And they got to the wild card game. They actually hosted the wild card game, which was not a pretty good accomplishment. You have DeGrom, who got injured. You have Matt Harvey got injured. You have Steven Matz, who got injured. You still have Noah Syndergaard, who is definitely the ace of your staff. If they can keep all those pitchers healthy, I mean, they can match up pitching with some of the best, like the Chicago Cubs, San Francisco Giants. Right. So it's just a matter. It's just a matter of you need to find a way to get these people healthy. Cespedes included last year. He had the quad injury, so I mean it's a good building piece to build around. But the only downside is you can kind of say is they gave him so much money. it kind of depends on what the ownership and the GM want to give up now, but you don't really have much to sign anyone else. So you're kind of just sticking with the team you had last year, not really making many improvements, just hoping that these injured guys can turn it around and get healthy and stay healthy.
Yeah, if that's the case, too, I mean, this is a good team. You know, if those injuries can stay.
This is a team that was in the World Series 2 years ago. It's definitely
and
a
a
good
team that, with the injuries, still maintained an ability to make the wild card game last year and host it. So there's a lot of talent there, but yeah, the big picture is staying healthy there for them, to say the least. And I mean, I honestly, I was hoping he wouldn't re-sign with the Mets. You know, I was hoping he would make his way around, talk to some people. You know,
I'm sure he did briefly.
I'm sure he did the same thing as LeBron. Probably quickly listens to people's offers and goes, "Yeah, no, I'm staying with the Cavaliers." Except for when Miami got him. But yeah, I think he's very much worth it. And then, you know, we're going to be seeing more signings as the months go on here, especially with winter meetings coming up. We'll have probably some trades and all of the goods. So keep an eye on that, of course. But until we have any more news in the world of sports, we are gone for the day. Our 24-hour break will conclude tomorrow with Anthony and I returning to talk college football in a little sense, talk NFL football for sure, and any and all sports news that pops up between now and then. We'd like to thank you, though, as always, for listening to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. Ben, you'll be back on Friday.
No, I will be out of town, so I am done for the week.
Oh, okay.
I will be in San Diego this weekend. So
looks like you're free. You're flying free on Friday.
Now you're free as a bird now.
Yeah, maybe Jeremiah will do the show with you. We'll have to find out.
If he's healthy enough.
If he's healthy enough, Jeremiah's a little sick.
I mean, he's coming off the DL, so.
Yeah. Quadricep injury. All right, we're going to take our final break in the sense of we're gone, you guys. So we'd like to thank you, as always, for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I am Alex.
My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And we will see you guys, Ben and I. See you on Monday. Oh, wait, when are you back?
I'll be back on Monday.
Okay, so we'll see you on Monday. Anthony, of course, and I will see you tomorrow.
Yep.
So you guys have a good rest of your day and enjoy your sports.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.